Jim Mark is greatly missed. Jim was a Southern gentleman, an outstanding surgeon, and leader, of course, president of this Western Thoracic Surgical Association. Jim was a wonderful person who was loved and respected by all he came into contact with. Many people, I think, get one or the other of those, love or respect. Far fewer get and deserve both, and Jim was one of those people. He was unusually open-minded and expansive in his interest for a leading surgeon. He achieved a great deal and leaves an amazing legacy by his work, but I think he'll mostly be remembered because he always had a big grin on his face, a great story to tell, and he invariably would make time to talk to anyone about anything. Jim was the kind of person you relished running into in the hallway just to have a true human and humane interaction with. He grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, the son of a rabbi, which probably explains his amazing way with words. He used to say, I did nursery school all the way through medical school within a 1-block radius in Nashville. After Vanderbilt for college and medical school, trained in surgery and then CT surgery at Yale. While taking a break to work in the public health service in Chicago during 2 years mid-training, he met Maxie, who was his lifelong partner in adventure. To give you an idea about the figure that Maxie cut around town, Maxie, well into her 80s, used to drive a convertible MG all around the campus. Jim and Maxie raised on the campus at Stanford a big, vibrant family of warm and high-achieving children who I've been lucky to get to know some of them over the years. We have Elizabeth and Maggie somewhere here today. I haven't seen them yet. There they are way in the back. They found a space. The Mark family was really a huge presence on the campus for many years in the local schools, and several of the children attended Stanford. It was after 3 years on faculty at Yale that Jim was recruited to Stanford, where he became an extremely important leader in the health system and also eventually university-wide. He was the founding thoracic surgery division chief, Shumway's right-hand man and golfing buddy. He was also the chair of surgery at the county hospital, interim chair of the whole department of surgery at Stanford for 3 years, chief of staff at Stanford Hospital, and he actually became associate dean for student affairs, which meant he was in charge of choosing the medical students at Stanford. So Jim was kind of everywhere in the university. Nationally, Jim was, of course, president of the Western, but he was also president of the Halsted Society, which some of you may know is pretty much the most prestigious society for every surgical specialty. He was also president of the American College of Chest Physicians, the pulmonologist group, which I think there have been 3 surgeons who headed that. As a surgeon, Jim cherished the doctor-patient relationship, often becoming very close with his patients. He took on all the most difficult problems and thought carefully and deeply about every patient. His trainees invariably described the impact he had on how to relate to and talk to patients, and how to take on their problems as a challenge for yourself. He was among the first to use thoracoscopy, pioneered using ventilation scans to identify air leaks, and he pioneered one of the first successful treatments for malignant pleural effusion. So Jim was very busy and a great physician and surgeon leader, but I think as a person and as a man is how he will be most fondly remembered. He was legendary for his storytelling, and he really was very loquacious. Scott Mitchell, I asked about Jim before this. Scott was also part of the regular weekly golfing with Shumway and Jim, and told me that Jim was very talkative even on the golf course. One day when they were playing, Dr. Shumway turned to Dr. Mark and said, Jim, you're the only guy I know who even talks during his own backswing. This habit did not hurt his golf game, however, as Jim was an amazing golfer and actually shot under his age many times. Here's a typical story that Jim told. He sees a patient in clinic, notices that the patient has the same birthday as his. He mentions this to the resident, maybe this resident is here. He mentions this to the resident, seeing the patient with him, and it turns out the resident also shares the same birthday. He schedules this man for surgery. They remove 5 colon cancer metastases, and it turns out the man is cured. And Jim then received a thank you card from that patient every year until he died. Unusual things like that seem to gravitate towards Jim, and he always remembered the good stories, and he got a ton of joy by retelling them. Jim's breadth of thinking and the breadth of his life is exemplified by his decision in mid-career to take his entire family to Tanzania for a 1-year-long sabbatical. It's not the kind of thing a lot of us would risk. He decided that the potential for growth and life experience that Maxie and the kids would gain from this was worth the risk, and it turned out to be an amazing thing for them, and I've heard a lot of great stories from that time. Jim and Maxie generously endowed the James B.D. Mark Family Visiting Professorship, for which our trainees are deeply indebted to them, and we've had several leading surgeons come, including some who are in this room. This is Jim when he was in Dar es Salaam. You can see how young he was at the time he did it. Jim Mark was a true role model in surgery and in life, and his memory will be a blessing to his colleagues, his friends, and his family forever. Here's the family with a couple of the girls.